All right, let's talk about one of the biggest challenges we all face. How do you take a giant, messy pile of user data and turn it into a real, living, breathing person? A person your team will actually care about and fight for. Let's dive in.
Okay, let's just park on this for a second because this idea is everything. Think about it, a pile of Post-it notes, a bunch of data points. That's just a to-do list. It's impersonal. It's just a bunch of tasks to check off. But a person with a name, a goal, a real struggle, well, that's a mission. That's what gives a team a real sense of purpose that will carry them through the late nights and the tough problems.
I want you to think of yourself as a police sketch artist. Right now, you've got all these blurry, sometimes contradictory descriptions from your research, from all your different witnesses. Your job isn't to draw 5 different pictures. It's to listen to all of it and draw one single, clear face. A face that your entire team can look at and just know, okay, that's who we're fighting for. So first things first, we've got to build our archetype. And listen, the goal here is not to create a persona for every single user. That's not a persona, that's just a database. Instead, we're hunting for powerful patterns, what we call behavioral clumps. We're basically building a Frankenstein's monster, stitching together the most powerful, most important parts from different users to create one cohesive whole. Okay, so check this out. We're taking 2 completely different user realities and looking for the truth that connects them. On one hand, you've got user A, who is just paralyzed by the fear of messing something up. On the other hand, you've got user B, who's just trying to get something done in the middle of total chaos, with a toddler screaming in the background. Now, these aren't 2 separate people. They're 2 parts of a single, much more powerful story. And bam, this is the stitch. We weave those 2 observations together to create the distracted, high-stakes user. This single archetype embodies the real-life chaos of user B with the very real terror of user A. They're distracted by life, and they are terrified of the consequences of that distraction. Now we have someone real to design for. And this is where things get really interesting because it forces you to make a choice. Creating a powerful persona isn't about being fair to every single data point. It's not about representation. It's about identifying the most significant behavioral clump. In this case, the 4 out of 5 who are on their phones, and ruthlessly focusing all of your energy on solving their problem. Because you know what? When you solve the biggest problem, you usually create the most value for everyone. Okay, we've got our archetype. Now it needs a name. But listen, not just any name. Generic labels like Jane Doe or User 1, they're what we call empty vessels. They give your team absolutely 0 instructions. What we need are names that are loaded weapons. Names that when you hear them, tell you exactly what you need to do. For example, Maria, 19, sophomore. I mean, so what? What does that tell a designer to do? What does it tell a developer to build? Absolutely nothing. It's just a demographic. It's an empty vessel, completely useless. It gives no instructions to your team. Okay, now we're talking. The Wi-Fi hunter. Instantly, you get a picture in your head, right? Someone hopping from a cafe to a library, desperately searching for a decent connection. So what's the order for the team? It's obvious. This app must work offline or on a garbage 2G connection. The name itself is a technical requirement. But this is the holy grail, the 3 a.m. desperado. This name tells an entire story in just a few words. You know their motivation, their environment, their emotional state. They're desperate. They're working when tech support is asleep and the system is probably under strain. The instruction to the team is crystal clear. Build a rock-solid, dead simple system because this person is completely on their own with everything on the line. You see how this works? A great behavioral name is basically a design brief in 3 words. If you tell your team the persona is the deadline dancer, and then you ask the UI designer where the countdown clock should go, well, it's not going to be buried in some menu. It's going to be front and center, huge, maybe even turning red as time runs out. The name is the order. All right, we're at the final step. And honestly, this might be the most important part of the entire process. We call it the empathy anchor. This is that last 5% that takes your persona from being a useful tool to being a real human. It's that tiny, non-technical detail that makes your user feel less like a data point and more like your neighbor. And these details, they have nothing to do with code or wireframes. The cold coffee tells a story of frustration. The 14 tabs open and the how to screenshot tutorials, that shows you they're feeling overwhelmed and maybe not so tech savvy. And doing all of this on their desk at work? Wow, that speaks volumes about their risk, their situation, and their sheer determination. These are the tiny details that build massive empathy. And that's the magic, right? Because let's be real, it's 2 a.m., your developer is exhausted and staring at a bug. The abstract concept of user retention means absolutely nothing to them in that moment. But the mental image of a real person hiding under their desk, desperately trying to use the app without getting fired, that's a motivator. That'll get the bug fixed. So at the end of the day, it really comes down to this. As a leader, as a designer, as a product manager, you have a choice. You can take your pile of data and just hand your team more work. Or you can do the hard work of synthesis. Give that data a face and a soul, and introduce your team to the human being they are on a mission to go help. The choice is yours.